case study moving towards a Department of Peace in a northern country with a fairly stable society. I'm not saying that everyone has confidence in our government. It's far from the truth. But we have a stable situation, significant and sufficient enough that allow us to move forward towards a National Department of Peace within the federal government of Canada. As we say here, now is the time. In order to have a successful project of this kind, you need a number of ingredients. You need to have a rationale for why you would need a Department of Peace. These are some of the elements that we have developed to consider as we talk to members of Parliament, as we talk to people in civil society, to our sister organizations all around the country, and we pursue these ideas in a simple way. I mean, we've boiled it down really to 4 major points that you can see here on the screen. Next slide, please. We have developed a proposed mandate for a Minister of Peace. We have taken the idea from Johan Galtung, where he speaks of conflict transformation by peaceful means, or conflict transformation in a way that would further peace as opposed to furthering conflict. And our entire objective, as it is of all of us here, is to create a culture of peace at home in our own communities, regionally, nationally, and globally. And this is one of the vehicles we feel that might be successful in carrying out such a solution. Next slide, please. The Department of Peace we see as having 5 thrusts that you can see here on the screen. It's a very broad kind of mandate. It involves overlap with certain ministries. We see this as an all-of-government approach to peace building, rather than it being in a single ministry altogether, but that ministry, that department, would be the lead agency in carrying this out, in providing some kind of coherence in policy and direction in peace building in Canada. Next slide, please. This is not so easy to read, but I hope you can see it in a very, very simple way. And later, I can show you at the marketplace, we will have a schematic of the entire bill that we are proposing, and that is now before Parliament, which I will talk about briefly in a moment. But ultimately, we want to see, there is no one in our cabinet that represents peace. We have the Department of National Defense. We have a department that really is mirroring Homeland Security. We call it Public Safety. So we want to see a balance in advising the Prime Minister of Canada that there are 2 equal parties, the Minister of Peace and the Minister of Defense. And then, of course, the contribution of other federal departments and agencies. Next slide, please. In order to be successful, you need to have prominent supporters. These are some of our most eminent peace builders historically in our country. Senator Douglas Roach is still very active. He's very well known to Alan Ware and works closely with him on the issue of disarmament. He was our ambassador for disarmament in Geneva. And Lloyd Arksworthy was our former Minister of Foreign Affairs. You may remember that the Anti-Mines Treaty was also called the Ottawa Treaty and came about as a remarkable engagement between civil society and the governments of Canada and other nations to create that treaty, which is being implemented very successfully as we speak. Next slide, please. And then we see a civilian peace service, which many of you, of course, know about, the Nonviolent Peace Force and so forth, that becomes the implementation arm for the ministry, so that we have, other than the military, we have a consistent way of implementing the policies and direction of the Minister of Peace. And next slide, please. One of the things that has happened in Canada that I believe is now unique, and I have been talking to the Nonviolent Peace Force people about this and others, that our group in Canada, the Civilian Peace Service Canada, has developed a certification process for this type of worker, a full professionalization of this work, much like you have military officers that attend colleges and universities over a 4-year program. We see the same development for peace builders in the field of this kind. Next slide, please. Of course, I must mention the Global Alliance is absolutely central in our work in terms of our ability to move our agenda forward. We are extremely, of course, encouraged by the ministers of peace in Nepal and Costa Rica. The Global Alliance has had a major part to play in both of these evolutions, and we're very proud of that contribution that we've made through civil society interventions. And we continue to work with GAMIP, which is now, at this point, the point of this slide, it was still just the Global Alliance for Ministries and Departments of Peace. We continue to work closely because we know that success in one place will lead to success in other places, as we foresee a network of ministers of peace all over the planet who meet periodically, not just in times of crisis, but to look at what the UN has consistently said is the most important aspect in peace work, is early detection and early response to situations which could emerge into violent conflict. Next slide, please. I put this up as a sobering reflection on the current state of the world in terms of military spending. I think it's probably increased a little bit since this slide was written, but you can see that all of these objectives, which include, of course, the Millennium Goals, are all achievable using approximately 15% of war spending. For our Minister of Peace, we've asked for 2% of the existing military budget to begin to establish the ministry. Next slide, please. There are no next slides, please. So this has been, what I want to say to you at the end is this. We, at this point in time in Canada, have a conservative government. This government is not going to create a Department of Peace. But the point is that you must continue building your momentum at all times, so that when that moment does arise, you're willing and able to capitalize on it. And that is what spurs us forward. And let me tell you, finally, we've had a breakthrough. First of all, there has been a private member's bill introduced into Parliament, the Department of Peace bill, which again, because it's not a government bill, will never become law, but it has informed and educated every member of Parliament. And we have gained a great deal of media attention as a result of it. At the current time, we have, in the Westminster system, you have an official opposition. The official opposition is the New Democratic Party, which supports our initiative, which stands a good chance of becoming the government, forming the government in 2015. And I was recently requested to meet with the leader of the opposition to discuss this initiative. So we are moving forward, and we're very encouraged by these developments. Thank you.
Thank you, Saul. And we're out of time for questions right now, but please find Saul or Penny or anyone else from the Department of Peace Initiative in Canada. I don't know, is there anyone else? In the marketplace for questions. Okay. Yes. Firkin's here also. You raise your hand? Thank you. Okay. And before we go to break, we have one final presentation from Papua New Guinea. I welcome Dennis Kuyai, who's worked in his professional career with civil society organizations and government, and he currently represents the autonomous Bougainville government in his country. Welcome, Dennis.